Well, good morning. Thank you for being here. You know, usually, I feel like I'm in God's good graces because it never rains on Sunday. So something has happened in my personal relationship with God, and I'm going to figure it out. But I'm very, very grateful that you are here. You know, in the Bible, I think the Bible describes everything that we go through on our journey, everything that we could possibly go through on our journey to God realization, to an awareness of our oneness with God. So I want to talk today about a little story from the Gospel of John. And it's when Jesus and the disciples, they come to Samaria. And they happen upon a well that Jacob dug many years before. Now the disciples leave Jesus there. Jesus is like, I'm going to sit here. I need a break. You're all working my last Jesus nerve, right? So you all go to town and go grocery shopping. Find the Costco, get supplies. I'm going to wait here. And so while Jesus is waiting at the well, a Samaritan woman comes. And you have to understand that the Jews and the Samaritans did not play well together at the time. That the Samaritans were like a schism, an offshoot of the Jewish teaching of the time. So although they believed some things that were similar and practiced some things similar, they had some significant differences. So the Jews did not interact with the Samaritans. So Jesus is sitting there at the well, and a Samaritan woman comes to draw a well, and he asks her to give me some water. And she basically says, are you talking to me? Right? Because they did. So first of all, a man did not talk to a woman on his own. That was just pretty much an unheard of practice. This comes from Lomso, the Bible scholar. He said that, it just wasn't done. It just wasn't done. Men just didn't talk to women. Women just couldn't go up and talk to men at the time. And so this is kind of unusual. And the disciples find it really strange. Like, what is Jesus doing when they come back? That he's talking to this Samaritan woman. And now the well was sort of like the one place where people could meet. Because remember, this is the Middle East. It's the desert. Everybody's got to have water. Water's in really short supply. So you would go early in the morning and get the water and bring it home for the day. So at the well, though, young men and women could meet and could, if nobody was around, sneak in a little conversation, Mm-hmm. And just conversation. And so she says, are you talking to me? You want me to give you water? I'm a Samaritan and you're a Jew. And he says, he said, if you knew who I really was, I could give you living waters and you would never thirst again. And so she takes him literally at first, right? I could never thirst again? You mean I wouldn't have to come to the well every day and schlep these jugs of water back to my house? That would be fantastic. What are you talking about? So she's only on a literal thing there. And so he says to her, go get your husband. And she says, well, I have no husband. And he says, yeah, I know, but you've had 5, haven't you? And so it's like he can read everything about her. Now, Charles Fillmore in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary says that her 5 husbands represent the 5 senses. That she views the world strictly through sense consciousness, through her 5 senses. So we all understand that because we're taught that, what your senses tell you is real, right? But Jesus is saying, no, beyond this dimension, there is a greater spiritual reality. There is a greater spiritual truth. And so then the disciples come back and they're surprised to see Jesus talking to this woman because, like I said, that was pretty much unheard of at the time. Especially for a single man to be talking to this woman and she's a Samaritan. It's like, no, we don't associate with them. So then a nobleman comes, or they encounter a nobleman who has heard of Jesus. And he has a young son who is on the brink of death. And he asks Jesus to help him. And Jesus said, go home, your son's going to be fine. He's fine already. And so the man does, And the servants meet the man on the way home and says, your son who was just about dead is alive. He's absolutely fine. He's absolutely fine. So I think there are a number of things in this chapter that are really significant for us. And actually, I think it's pretty simple. That Jesus is doing all kinds of good work. And so healing that boy, the distance healing. So if you wondered if your prayers were effective from a distance, there's a reminder right there. You know that Jesus healed this boy from a distance. That Jesus takes a pause at the well. You know, and so I know for us, our Western mindset is that we need to be busy doing things all the time. We need to be accomplishing all the time. We need to be making progress. We need to be making things better. I can't just be idle for very long. And Jesus takes this pause. So I was thinking, as Adam was singing his song about about the birds flying, and I thought, they don't flap their wings constantly, do they? We've all seen birds fly. And they're not constantly flapping. They'd be exhausted. They flap, and then at some point, they glide, right? And that glide is like a little rest period for them. I don't know, maybe they take out their little bird cell phones and check their email or something. But it's a resting moment. So what I think this equates to for me, as I've read the story, and what I do in my preparation is I'll read the story every day of the week. So that maybe something will happen in the little gray cells and I'll have some insight into the story. And so what occurred to me was that there's this component of rest. And I think for many of us, because we are in such a fast-paced driven society, that we don't often allow ourselves that until something comes crashing down on us and forces us to rest. And so one of the things I thought about this week is if I went intentionally to a period of rest and allowed myself to have some of that time, I wouldn't have to have occasions where the universe says, okay, you don't want to rest? We're going to support you in resting. Do you know what I mean? Right? So a couple of things about this story that occur to me is that, and it's connected to a question that people ask all the time. That when we've prayed and prayed and prayed and done all the human effort that we know how to do to improve our condition, to improve our health, to improve our relationship, to improve our finances, we've done everything that we know how to do, and we've been praying like crazy, and we've been doing the earth plane stuff, and nothing happens. So it seems. Nothing happens. And we think, God, this doesn't work. What did I spend all that time praying for and reading and studying and being of service and tithing and doing all those things I do? Why did I do all that if it doesn't get any better? And I think that after you've done everything you know how to do, that's when you rest. You bring good consciousness to what you're trying to improve. You do all that you know how to do on the earth plane. So Ernest says, treat and move your feet. So that means do the spiritual work and then take action in the world. So we do everything we know how to do spiritually. I pray, I meditate, I study, I serve, I tithe, I do all that. And then do what I need to do in the world, because now I've done all the spiritual stuff, so hopefully what I do in the world I'm going to bring some good consciousness to. And then I have to say, okay, I've done everything I know. So like the bird, at some point I stop flapping. But I don't crash to the ground. I stop flapping and I let the wind kind of lift me and carry me, and I glide a little bit. See, the question people always ask is, am I supposed to, keep affirming and keep visualizing and keep treating and be specific, or am I supposed to let go and let God? And the answer is yes. It is, because it's both. It's both of those things, and they do not contradict each other. I mean, I can't tell you how often I have a phone call with somebody and they say, I just don't understand that. Am I supposed to keep praying, keep visualizing, and keep affirming and looking at my vision board and doing those things? Or am I supposed to just, throw my arms in the air and say, all right, God, it's all up to you? And I say, well, they're different states of consciousness. And I think both apply. I think absolutely when we're working on something, when we're trying to have a healing, or we're trying to heal our relationship, or increase our financial flow in life, whatever we're working on, I think we do everything we know how to do spiritually. So I will affirm and I will meditate and I'll study and I'll do all the things I know how to do. And then when I feel like I've done everything I know how to do, then I say, okay, God, I put this in your hands. Now, people think, so that's really where surrender is. That's where let go and let God is. People think if they hear, oh, well, put it in God's hands, let go and let God, that means I'm giving up. That means I quit. I'm not still interested in where I was headed. But I don't think that's so. I think that we're not surrendering to a power that wants to control us. God doesn't have any investment in you not having what you want. God does not want you to be unhealthy. God does not want for you to be unhappy. God does not want for you to be lonely or broke. None of that ever enters into divine consciousness. So what's that time period? What's that waiting about? That waiting is about our consciousness having the time it needs to change. See, what's happening is you know the healing, the demonstration that you are after in your life. And so the process is that we are being made into the people where that demonstration, that healing can take place. Now, God said yes immediately. It's not like God says, oh, can you call me on Thursday between 3 and 4? I might have some time for you then. It's like God's already done God's part. But it takes us time to get on board with what God is already doing. It takes time. It takes time for us, So I think this is why it's so important that we work on our consciousness and do the best we can do on our consciousness every single day, right? We do our own healing work. When I say we do our own healing work, it's like, everybody knows what their own healing work is. We really do. You know where you need to forgive, don't you? Yes, absolutely. We don't need to talk about that today. You know where your heart is closed, so where it needs to open a little more and be a little loving. I watched things on TV this week, historic things. I did. And sometimes I actually just turn the sound off in watching them. And history in the making, which I love. I just love. It was thrilling. There's something, to me, I don't know, I get all verklempt and patriotic seeing our nation's capital and stuff like that. I love it. I love it. I think it's so great. But I didn't really need to hear what was being said all the time. So I turned down the volume, and I would see images and pray. And I'd see new images, and I'd pray. And I'd see new images, and I'd pray, because for me, that was the highest place I could go in my mind, in my spiritual practice, was to just keep sending love, sending light. God's wisdom is working through all of you. God's infinite intelligence is coursing through all of these players. And good for everyone on the face of the earth is coming out of this. So we work on our consciousness and do the healing we need to do. Where's my heart closed that I need for it to be more open? Where am I unwilling to forgive? Where am I unwilling to let go of the past? I have to do that now because it's affecting me. And then I do all the things I can do in the world. So that means I may have to, make phone calls and introductions and just the doing this. And then when I've done all I can do, I give it to God. I say, okay, God, I'm sincere about this. I've done everything I can do. I got to tell you, one of the great revelations as I've gotten older to me is balance is a moving target. Yeah, it really is. That, when I was younger, what was balance for me when I was 30 was very different than balance for me at 40, because things changed a lot. And then balance at 50, they really changed a lot. So this is why I say balance is a moving target. There used to be, when we had the old church, we used to go this way. When we were in the old church, there was a little woman who used to come here every week with her daughter and son-in-law. Her name was Shirley. And I just loved her because she had this fantastic attitude all the time. She was 95 years young, and she just had this dazzling attitude. And she always looked like $1 million. Her hair was always done, and her nails were done, and she always had on like this smart little outfit. She always wore a dress, and high heels. At 95, she was wearing high heels. I was just amazed, she looked like she was like ready to go to a club, a nightclub or something. And I'd say to her, Shirley, tell me your secret. I have got to, what's your secret? You seem to be doing so well. And she'd say, Dr. Mark, I do everything in moderation. And I thought, man, that is a strange land to me, moderation. I have never been to moderation in my life. I have only ever been to that place where a little is good, a lot more is better, and that's where I thought I would live. And I'd look at her daughter and son-in-law, and I'd say, really? And she'd say, her daughter would tell me, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. We'll go out to eat on the weekend, and she'll have, but only on the weekend, a glass of wine, and just one. Like, really? And she'll order whatever she wants on the menu, and she immediately takes half of it home. You know, she'll always have dessert, but she cuts the dessert in half. I have never had that discipline for a moment in my life, I want you to know. I have one dessert, and I think, what else is on the menu? There must be something else I need to try. But this was her philosophy, that everything in moderation. And I thought, wow, that is, you know, there's so many things in that, because I think, well, she's really trusting that there is more good. More good is going to come down the road. I don't have to have it all now. I'm still working on that. I feel I am. I still feel like I'm really, really working on that. So, you know, when we've done our best to what feels like no avail, you know, we've prayed and done the work we know how to do on the earth plane, then we have to sit, you know, and let the words of truth, you know, be a well of living water. Let the words of truth be a wellspring of living water. So in the Psalms, it says, I will lift up mine eyes to the hills from whence cometh my help. So I always like that. You know why I like that? Because when I was little, I went to see The Sound of Music, the movie, and that's what the Mother Superior says to Maria. You know, when Maria's asking the Mother Superior, what are we going to do? Where are we going to hide from the Nazis? And the Mother Superior said, you know, sort of like gives her a hint like, I will lift up mine eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. And they go off into the mountains, right? They make their way over the mountains there. And so for us, I think this is about, you know, we have to know that where is our help coming from? Our help is coming from God, the infinite Spirit, you know, the presence of love and intelligence that creates the universe out of itself. Now, I remember reading in our textbook, Ernest Holmes says that God is 1,000 times more ready to give than we are to receive. Right? That God is more than happy to give to us, right? And has already done so. But we have so much difficulty receiving. It's just like so hard for us to receive, even though we say we want things to be better, and we want things to be different, and we want things to be good. Jesus said, whoever drinks this water will not thirst again. Like, what does that mean? That means that the source is actually within us. The source is within us. And that's what we have to remember. Wherever we are, wherever we go, whatever we find ourselves involved in, the source exists, the source exists within us. You know, I get so excited about what I had to say this morning that I had my notes all in the wrong order. And but to tell you the truth, I think I covered it all. I think I covered everything I wanted to say. I hate it when that happens. God. So this is from the writings of Emma Curtis Hopkins. She says, far in the Oriental past, they taught that the flower of truth blooms in the silence after the storm and stress of effort. Isn't that wonderful? That the flower of truth blooms in the silence after the storm and stress of effort. See, I think we're afraid to be still. We're afraid to rest. We're afraid to be in that place of balance because we think, oh, I should be doing more. I could be doing more. Couldn't I? I could make this happen a little faster. And I think that's part of the process. Part of the process, you know, is we effort and then we pull back. And we effort and we pull back a little bit. Emma says the highest truth we can speak is thou art my all. And so a way we might say that in modern terms is God is all. God is all. or spirit is all, or love is all. However you can articulate that. But Emma Curtis Hopkins says that that's the highest truth we can speak, to recognize that it's all God. That all of it, regardless of the appearance, it's all God. Let's pray. So we turn our attention inward now, becoming still together and remembering that right here where we are, the fullness and the allness of God is. And so as we join together in thought and prayer and consciousness this morning, I know for each and every one of us that the place whereon we stand is holy ground. And I claim for us that as we move forward in our life, that we do everything we know how to do spiritually, and we take action in the world, and we allow ourselves that moment or period of time of rest. So what has looked like nothing is happening, I know in fact that on the unseen side, everything is taking place. And this is where we stand open and receptive and willing to it. So we're not willing anything to happen, we're just available to it. We're allowing it to come forward in our life. So yes, I know for each and every one of us that God is 1,000 times more ready to give than we are to receive. And today we declare for ourselves that we are gracious receivers in God's abundant universe. That everything God has to give to us, we open ourselves, hearts and mind, and we graciously receive it. So we include in our prayer today our family members, our friends and loved ones. We see them in our mind's eye and we wrap our spiritual arms around them. And we know the truth that right where they are, God is in its fullness. We let our prayer be a blessing in the world around us. So all of those things, all of those appearances, we say God is right there. God is there as peace, as healing, as divine intelligence, as perfect love, as all needs met. And we claim this for the highest and greatest good of everyone. We bless our church and we bless all churches everywhere. We bless synagogues and temples and mosques and ashrams, all paths to God. And I'm certain that we are blessed by being together today. By coming together in consciousness, we all get raised up. And so with an open, gracious, full heart, I give thanks that this is the truth. I release this word, and so it is. Together we all say, Amen.